The Middle English period began with the Norman conquest of England in 1066. The Normans were Vikings who had settled in northern France in the 9th century. They spoke their own rural dialect of French. This French language seeped into English society upon the Normans' conquest of England. In the early 1200s, English was the language of the common people, a blend of English, Norman, and French. Throughout the Middle Ages, it was common for native English speakers to be fluent in French as a second language. In the 13th and early 14th centuries, there was an escalation of French literature and prestige. The upper class, including its leaders, began using French in the courts and in politics. Speaking French was a distinct marker of ambition and class. Middle and upper class students who wanted to join the prestigious ranks of politicians, lawyers, judges, and diplomats would learn French to help secure their futures. The Middle Ages were considered the beginnings of a rebirth in literature. The Crusades played a part in these changes as a series of military campaigns conducted during the Middle Ages, based mostly from Europe against the Muslims of the Middle East. Most were waged over the city of Jerusalem and the Holy Lands. In order for a conflict to be officially labeled a crusade, it had to be sanctioned by the Pope and against an enemy of the Christian faith. This series of wars lasted over 200 years. Jerusalem was captured by Muslims in 1076. This brought great joy to the Muslim world, since Muhammad had lived in the city and had been the founder of Muslim faith. The war had raged because the city of Jerusalem had a powerful meaning to those of the Christian faith as well. Christians called it the City of God, since Jesus had been born nearby and had spent much of his life in Jerusalem. The Crusades proposed obtaining the Holy Lands for the English, while the Muslim race fought to keep it. It was during the First Crusade, beginning in 1096, that the Christian crusaders began wearing a red patch in the shape of a cross on the front of their garments. The Pope, Urban II, is quoted, "Christians, hasten to help your brothers in the East, for they are being attacked. Arm for the rescue of Jerusalem under your captain, Christ. Wear his cross as your badge. If you are killed, your sins will be pardoned." The word Crusades came from the French word croix, meaning cross. Contact and collaboration with other Christian cultures during the Crusades allowed for the development of language. As cultures collided, language grew more developed. Motivation to collaborate with the Christian Crusades grew as incentives increased. Many volunteered for wealth and protection by the church. Pilgrims at the time were excluded from paying taxes. Crusaders fighting for God were motivated by gaining the Holy Lands, the riches they hoped to find there, and the claim to joining the pilgrimage for God. Many were motivated by the goods they could trade beyond Europe. The growth of trade with the Muslim world developed language, art, architecture, and education due to interactions between the East and West. By 1100, the First Crusade had captured the city of Jerusalem. Later crusades resulted from the desire to eliminate all Muslims from the area surrounding Jerusalem. In the Second Crusade, Christians aimed at protecting the captured city Edessa, which is a gateway to Jerusalem. As the territory grew, culture was spread between the East and West. Wandering artists and poets developed new styles of writing upon encountering new cultures. In 1187, Saladin, the Sultan of Egypt, proved to be a threat to Christians, and during the Third Crusade, the Muslims regained control over Jerusalem. The Fourth Crusade took a strange turn. The Pope, Innocent III, revised Urban II's plans and was not able to conjure acceptance of any emperor or king. While originally aiming to capture Jerusalem, the city of Constantinople was captured instead. In 1212, led by an illiterate 12-year-old shepherd's son, two groups of crusaders from France and Germany set off to fight for the Holy Lands. These groups were compiled almost entirely of young children who were thought to believe they would be protected by God and reach Jerusalem to win it back for the Christians. Neither crusade is said to have had any success. None were sanctioned by the Pope, while neither was condemned. The final crusades took place from 1217 to 1272. These are considered minor because they lacked the spiritual motivation and zeal which marks the era of the Crusades. The final crusade ended the Holy War with the defeat of the Christians by the Muslims in 1291. At the beginning of the war, the English language was being influenced by a Norman French, Anglo-Norman or Anglo-French, with roots from Latin, Greek, and Danish histories. The war, actually lasting 116 years, was between English and French monarchies fighting for the right to rule France. Every battle was fought in France. There were constant rumors in England that the French meant to invade and destroy the English language. National feeling emerged out of such rumors that unified both France and England further. English victories were followed by French victories, and then a period of deadlock would follow, until the conflicts again rose to the surface. After the Battle of Agincourt in 1415, won by the English under Henry V, the English controlled most of northern France. It appeared that England would shortly conquer France and unite the two countries under one crown. At this crucial moment in French history, a young and illiterate peasant girl, Joan of Arc, helped to rescue France. She liberated France from the English at the Battle of Orleans, and this led to the loss of almost all England's French possessions. The 100 Years' War basically confirmed the fall of the French language in England, which had served as a language of the ruling classes and commerce there from the time of the Norman Conquest until 1362. English became the official language of the law courts and replaced Latin as the medium of instruction at most schools.